โอมภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธสวากขาโตเยนะภะคะวะตาธัมโมสุปฏิปันโนยัสสะภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆธัมมังยังภะคะวันทังสัตตัมมาสัสสังฆังเอเมหิสาการเรหิยดาระหังอาโรปิเทหิยาปิโพจยามะสาธุโนบันเดภะคะวะสุจิรภาริเนบุญโนภิวาจิมาจารธานุคัมปมานัสสะเอเมสาการเรจุกตพันนากาลบุญเดปฏิกันนาตุอัมหาคังเดกลาทังนิทายสุขายะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวะพุทธังภะคะวันตังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตภะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนัมสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนัมมามิหันนัมยังบุตตาสภะคะวะโตปุปปะกะนะมะกะลังคะโลมะเสนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะหันนามยังบุญญานุสตินยังคโลมะเสทังโฆภานะภะคะวันตังเอวังกัลยาโนเกติสาโทอาภุกโตเอติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธเวชาจารณะสัมปันโนสุขโตโลกวิทูอนุตตรโพริสดัมมัสสารติสัทธาเดวมนุสสานังพุทโธภควาติหันนามยังบุตตาภิกิติงคโรมะเสมุตตวาระหันดาวารตาติโกนาปิยนโนสุตาปิยานการุณาหิสัมมากัตโตโมเทสิโยสุจารตังกัมมลวสุโลวันดามหังธรรมารนังศิรสาเจนันดังบุโดโยสาปปานินางสารนังเกบัมเมตัมมังปัตตมานุสติทานังวันดามิตังสิเลนะหังมุดาสาสมิทาโสวะบุโดเมสามิเกสโรบุโดดุคาสกาตาจะเวทาตาจะหิตาสเมบุทาสาหังนิยาเดมิสลิลันเยวิตังจิตังวันนันโนหังจเรสามิบุญดาเสวะสุโพธิตังนาติเมสารนังอัญญังบุโตเมสารนังวรังเอเทนะสาจวาเจนะวาเตยะสาธุสัสสเน บุตังเมวันธรรมาเนนยังบุญญาปัสสุดังหิตาสัมเนปิยันตรายาเมมะเฮสุงทัสเทจะสานวจายวเจตสวาบุญเทสุขมังมคตังมะเยยะบุญโหปฏิกันหาตัวจยันตังอลันเดเรสังวริตุวบุญเดอันนามยังธัมมานุสตินยังคโลมาเสโสอาคาโทภะคะวะตาธัมโมสันเดติโกอากาลิโกเอหิปัสสิโกโยหิติอันธรรมยังธัมมาปิกิติงคโลมาเสสวากาตตาติกุณายโยกวเสนะเสยโยโยมาคปาคปาริยาติวิโมกเปโตธัมโมกุโลกปัตตนาตตตาลิตาลิวันนามหังธรรมหารังวรธัมมเมตังธัมโมโยสาปปานินางสารนังเกมะโมตมังดุตยานุสติทานังวันนานิทังสิเลนะหังธัมมาสาสมิทาโสวะธัมโมเมสามิเคสโลนะโมดุขัสสะกาตาจะวิทาตาจะหิทาสเมธัมมาสาหังนิยาเดมิสเรละชีวิตังจิตังวันนันโนหังจเรสามิธัมมาเสวสุธัมมตังนาติเมสารนังอัญญังธัมโมเมสารนังวรังเอเทนะสัจวะเจนะวะเทยะสาธุสัสสเนธัมมังเมวันธัมมาเนนยังบุญญาปัสสุดังหิดาสัมเนปิยันตรายาเมมะเฮสุงทัสเทจะสานวจายวเจตสวาธัมเมสุขมังมะกตังมะเยยะธัมโมปฏิกันหาตัวจยันตังกลันเดเรสังวริตุวะธัมเมอันนามยังสังฆานุสตินยังคโลมาเสสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆโอจุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆญาญาปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสามิจิภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆยะติดังยันหาลิปุริสยุกานิยาตปุริสโภกลาเอสะภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆอาหุนายโยปาหุนายโยดากินายโยอัญจลิกรณิโยอนุตตรังมุญญาเกตังโลกัสสาติอันนามยังสังฆาปิกิติงคโลมาเสสันธรรมโจสุปฏิปัติโกนาภิยุนโนโยธาปิโทอริยโภคลสังกเสโทศีลาดิดัมมปวาลาสยกายเจโตวันนามหังธรรมริยานกนะสุสุนดังสังโฆโยสาปปานินางสารนังเกมะโมตมังทัตยานุสติทานังวันดามิตังสิเลนะหัง Sangha sahasmita sowa sango me samiki saro sango dukkha sakata javitata jahita same Sangha saham niyade misarle lanye vitang jitang One hando hangjale sami sangha so patibhanatang nati me saranang anyang sangho me saranang valang etena sacha vachena vateya satu sasane sanghang me vandamane nayang bunya vasudang indah Sambe piyandaraya me ma he sungha sate jasa. Yayena vachaya vacheta sabha sangye kukamba pakatang mayaya sangho pati ganhatu vajayanta galandare sangwaritu vasanghe. So this evening, this is the last evening of the session and the last evening of my stay here. So before giving the Dhamma talk, then Dr. Dar asked if we could do some Purita chanting, some blessing chants, or leave you all with a kind of a blessing of the triple gem and the auspicious chanting. Or maybe we could, Jivako, if you call Davis. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa Bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, dhammang saranang gacchami, sanghang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, Midutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, Midutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi sanghang saranang Gacchami Ochakumamo Hambala Pagano Sammang Vabuddho Sukato Imodo Mala Saphasa Vinimo Jayano Pape Sikema Janatang Vinayang Buddhang Warlandang Hirlasana Mamilo Kasana Tanya Venaya Kanya Tane Yasate Jayase Dihotu Sabandaraya Javena Samendu Dhammo Dajoyo Viatasasa Nuna Se Sivin วิญาณิโกดัมมันดลาสันดาลิสาดาวะโหสันติกโลสุจินโนธัมมังวรันดังเฮลสานัมมามิโมอาปันดาลังอุปสันดดาหังคันเนจุสาเทจยเสติโหตุสาพันดลายาจวินาสมเมนตุสาดัมมเสนาสุขทานุโกโยโลกะสัพพะโพภคิเลสเสตาสันโนสยังคะ นินิโยจะโคจะสวากาจะดัมมะเวริทังกโลติสังฆังวรันดาเดลสานัมมามิบุญญานุบุญดังสัมมาสิละเดเตงทันเดจะสาเทจะยเสติโหตุสาบันดาลายาชวินาสมเมนโหนะโมอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะมะเหสิโนนะโมโหธรรมดัมมะสสวากาตาเสวะเทนิดนะโมมหาสังฆสัพพิวิสุทธิสีลเดทิโนนะโมโหมะดยาลันดาสารตนาทยาสสาดุขังนะโมโหมะคาทิทาสตาสวาตุดยาสปินะโมกาลาปมบาเวนวิกาจันโอปานตวานโมกาลาสเตวิสมหติโหตุมันดานโมกาลาสเทเจนเวเดมิโหมิเอจวาเสวนาจบาลานะปันยะปุจนิยานังเอตัมมังกลมุตตมังปฏิโลปเตสวาโสจะพุมเบจะคตปุญญตอนิริจาเหตัมมังอาหุสังจัสสุเสกิโนสุภาสิทธาจยาวาจาเอตัมมะกลมุตตมังมาตาปิตุปาทานังโพตันดาลาสุสังฆโหอนาคุลาจกัมมันดาเอตัมมังกลมุตตมังดานันจะดัมมะจริยาจัญญาตกะนิคัมมานิเยธามังกลมุตตมังอาลติเวลติปาปามาจะปานาจะสัญญโมอาปมาดยะธัมเมสุเอตามังกลมุตตมังกาลโวชนิวาโทจะสันเดติจะกตายุตากาเลนะธัมมาสวนังเอตัมมะกาลโมตตมังคันเดจะโสวชาสันดาสัมมนานัญชดาสนังคาเลนะธัมมสาคาชาเอตัมมังกาลโมตตมังตะโพจะปรามัจเลยัญญะหะเลยสาจานดาสนะ เนมานะสาจกิริยาจะเหตัมมะพละโมตตมังโพธาสโลกดัมเมหิเจตังยาสนะคัมมติยโสกังเวดจังเขมะเหตัมมังกลโมตตมังเอธาติสะนิขาตวานะสาบาตมะปราจิตาสาบา ดโสทิงกาชันติทันเทสังมะกาลมุตตมันเตคาลนิยมัตตกุสเลนยันนะสันดังบดังอภิสมเมจสาโค Ojo cha soho cho cha suwa cho cha samundo anatimani sandu sako cha sumbalo cha pake cho cha sala hukavu de sandin reo cha nipago cha apakabo kule suwananuke do na cha kundang samachare kenye na vinyo pale upavadeyo Sukino akemino hondu sabe Zata bavandu sukita ta ye kechipa Nambuta tita sawata valava anavasesa Dikava ye mahanda vama Chimala saka hanukatola dita vaye Jadi taye chadole vasande avidole Buddha vasambhave seva sabe Data bhavandu sukitata napalo palangniku Vetanati manyeta kata chinangi Nimayalo sanapati kasanya nanya manya Sadhuka me jaya mata yata niyang muta Daya sae kaputa manulake Evam visabha bhute sumanasa Bhavaye aparimadang metanjasa Balokasming manasam bhavaye Aparimanang udang adocha tiliyanja sambada Havelang asapatang dedanjala Niseno vasayano vaya Vatasa vikata mido etang satingadi Jaya Brahma metang vihalang idamma Punditin jahanupakam silavada Sanena samvano game Suvenaya ketang nahi jaduka Nasayang punale titi Sukapata janinduka baya Pata janimbaya sokapata Jene soka hondu sabe Nipani no etavata jam Punya sambadang kabe dewa hanumoda Dusava sambati sediya danandada Dusandaya silang rakan dusabada Pavana bilata hondu gacha Dudevata gandha sabe bunda bala Pata pajeka nanjayang bala Alahanda nanjate je narakang manda misamaso Iti piso bhagava rahang samma sambuddho vicha jalana sammano sugato lokavidu anuttaro pulisada Macalati sata deva manusana Buddho Bhagavati Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Nipasiko Ho Panayiko Pachata Vedidammo Vinyo Hiti Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Chupatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Nyaya Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Samichi Patipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Yadidangyata Ripolisa Yoga Niyata Polisa Pogala Esa Bhagavato Savaka Sangho a hunayo pa hunayo dakinayo Anjali karaniyo anutalang bunya Ketang lokasati Mahakaluniko nato ita Yasabapani nang moletwa palami Samapato samodi mutamange Tena sacha vachena hotu te Jaya mangalang jayando bodhiyamule Sakyanang nandiwadano evangdawa Vijayo ho hijaya sujaya mangale Apalachita palange si se patavi pokale Abhiseke samba buddha nangakapato Pamodati sunaka tang sumangalang supapata Lohoti tang sukano sumohoto jasuyeda Brahmachari supadaki nanghaya kamma Vajaka Bandakina Manokamang Manidite Bandakina Nikatwa Nalabandate Padakine.
ब्रह्माचलोकाधिपति सम्पति कतंजलि अंधिवरंगयाच संतिद्ध सत्ता परजक जातिका देशे सुधम्मं अनुकंपिमं भजन्
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. Okay, so as I just said, this is the last session. It's also the last evening for myself and Ajahn Chunda to be here. We'll be heading back to Thailand early tomorrow morning just to express my delight and appreciation of the group here and both the kind of the center here in Dhammarama and all the activities that go on here, but also the kind of the nascent beginnings of a forest monastery in Rampurganda in northern Haryana. Got to go up there and see the land, see the property, see the people, and yeah, there's definitely possibilities of a forest monastery, and bringing Buddhist practice, monastic practice, back into the web of the Indian culture. We were there at went up to Rumpurgan, went up to Adibadri, and got to see the ruins of the ancient monastery there, and one can just imagine I mean, there's a very protected little valley, and so you can just imagine the rhythm of monastic life happening, and the chanting and the meditation and the alms round and the daily life of looking after a monastery, sweeping the grounds, all of the mundane things that are really so important to establishing a monastery. And I think it's important to reflect on the mundane things, because oftentimes we want to get out of we want to get out of my mundane life so I can realize peace and liberation and freedom, and the reality is the main mundane life follows us around, and we have to have the tools to live that kind of mundane, because there's nothing more mundane than being born, getting old, getting sick, and dying. But that's what we all experience. That's the nature of our life. And so then being able to face that quite squarely and see, well, what tools do I bring to this? What skills do I bring to that? And how does one transcend that without being caught in a kind of a dichotomy of me entangled here, and then having to get over there, and because oftentimes there's so much self involved in that, and of course that's exactly the structure of the Buddhist teachings. Immediately gives us the tools to do that. And certainly the very first teaching that the Buddha gave was the teaching on the Four Noble Truths, and that you think in terms of the Buddha. Sometimes, especially in other Buddhist traditions, they'll sort of like the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths just as a kind of almost like a beginner's kindergarten class, and he saved his big teachings for later. But to me, how I conceive of it is the Buddha, newly awakened, committed to teaching and passing on what his insight, what his liberation was, fully committed to doing that. I mean, he was awakened in Bodh Gaya, which several of you are going to be going to. Some are already there, and then he walked to Sarnath. It's about 200 kilometers So that takes commitment. And then he had time to ponder how best to express this teaching. Um, um, recognizing, because his initial impulse was that this is too subtle, too refined, goes against the grain of and nobody's going to get it. But then he realizes and makes that commitment of compassion to teach for the benefit of others. And here he is, freshly awakened, the power of the very recent awakening experience behind him, and the opportunity to share this insight that he has really given his life to, or given up his life to, really just surrendered to giving himself to the path of practice. So it's just this full commitment, and then the same kind of commitment to bringing benefit to others. And and then with this absolutely fresh insight, and what does he teach? He teaches the Four Noble Truths, and this is this is a teaching that focuses on on experience. It's an experiential teaching, rather than taking a philosophical position, or establishing a position of faith in a deity or something external to him. Is coming back to fundamental human experience. How do we use our human experience? How do we learn from our human experience as a catalyst for freeing the heart? And so that looking at the experience of dukkha, so that sense of recognition that rather than, because usually the habit of the human heart is to, I mean, who wants dukkha? Who wants? I mean, nobody wants to deal with it. Nobody wants it at all. But the Buddha is saying, this is important. You have to understand this. You have to use it as a tool. And looking at, and just looking at what dukkha is. I mean, because it has so many nuances. But fundamentally, it's just that dis-ease, discontent, dissatisfaction, stress, that is part and parcel of human existence. It's usually translated as suffering, which is only just a part of the couple of years ago, I came across an etymological explanation of the word dukkha, and I thought it was a really good description of dukkha, in the sense that dukkha is a word that is a pre-Buddhist word, and quite common. And this is sometimes the Buddha made up his own words, or was it very unique, or in this case, it's like taking a word from the ordinary vernacular and applying it to and dukkha, and dukkha and sukha are opposites, and duk is sort of like something that's like bad, unwanted, not good. And ka is and because ancient India was a horse culture with chariots and wagons, whatnot, then the ka was where the axle went into the wheel. And so that sukha is when the wheel rolls really smoothly, it fits perfectly, it's nice and smooth and tight, and dukkha is when it doesn't fit nicely. It's either tight, too loose, too not round, and it just is not smooth. It's uncomfortable. It's unpleasant. So that's what dukkha is. It's this experience of the uncomfortable, dis-ease. It's not easeful. It's not comfortable. So that's what. But it's an experience, and it's something that uh, we all experience. It's just part and parcel of human existence, and to be willing to investigate dukkha, because normally we try to distract ourselves from it, or we get angry and upset at it, or we are fearful and anxious over the next dukkha experience, and all of those range of reactivity is not a resolution, uh, and so that the Buddha is saying, we need to look at this dukkha, and also the Buddha is not saying that life is suffering. He's saying there is dukkha, uh, and the dukkha that we do experience is there because of the very nature of our existence. And the Buddha goes through the birth is dukkha, aging is dukkha, sickness is dukkha, death is dukkha, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair are dukkha, both on the physical realm, the mental realm. But then he starts pointing to more root causes, in the sense of, separation from the loved is dukkha. The association with the unwanted, the unloved is dukkha. Not getting what one wants is dukkha. But then in brief, the 5 focuses of the grasping mind are dukkha. And it's the 5 focuses of the grasping mind: body, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness, that are affected by clinging, by upadana, by grasping. So that's your source of dukkha. That's the nature of dukkha. And of course, what that does is open up the possibility of, oh, well, I mean, if I'm alive, I'm going to have a body, I'm going to have a mind, I'm going to have these 5 aggregates of being: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. That's this. I'm going to have that. But how do I do that? How do I live within those boundaries without experiencing this grasping, this clinging, this sense of deriving sustenance from what I attach to, and of course that's the whole reason why the teachings are there, and that's the whole purpose of the practice, is to give us the tools to work within these boundaries of having a body and a mind that are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and that they are not self. So we've got, the Buddha has given us the tools, and it's important to recognize that this is a again, it's an experiential teaching. It's a teaching of practice of training. One of the ways that the Buddha described his teaching, the name he called it, he was called it a viryavada, a teaching on effort. So it's not a teaching on just belief, not a teaching on just on, say, faith or devotion to something other than experience. It's about putting forth effort. And of course, the Buddha talks about right effort in the Eightfold Path. And that's a part of the training. But the essence of right effort is not how much you do or how much you flail around and look busy. It's about what's the results of the effort that you do make. Does it increase wholesome states of mind? Does it decrease the unwholesome states of mind? And that's the essence. You have to be paying attention to the result that we are experiencing, because again, this is an experiential teaching that's giving us the tools to see where do we need to put forth effort, where do we need to step back. It's the very first teaching that the Buddha that's in the Samyutta Nikaya is it's a very short exchange between the Buddha and a Devata, and the Devata asked the Buddha, "How did you cross the flood? How do you cross the flood of samsara?" And the Buddha said, "I crossed the flood of samsara by not pushing forward and not standing still." And the Devata said, "I don't understand that. Could I get a bit more to work with here?" And then the Buddha says, "Well, when I pushed forward, I was swept away. When I stood still, I sank." So that's about effort. So that getting that balance between how do you put forth effort without getting swept up and agitated or stirred up, and then how do you still things? How do you settle without sinking, without falling into dullness and lassitude? Because that's this stillness, especially in a meditative stillness, the mind it should be bright. It's not a stillness that is dull. So it's this balance. Again, I think I mentioned it in the Q&A this afternoon of how Ajahn Chah talking about the essence of the Dhamma of the Lord Buddha is this quality of just right, quality of balance. So we have to pay attention to balance, and having a structure like the Four Noble Truths allows us to reflect on what is a balance? What is a just right quality? And how does it affect us? Not just right in terms of a philosophical position uh, or an exact methodology, but how does it affect us? How are we responding? Is the mind uplifted? Does it have an increase in wholesome qualities? Does it have a decrease in unwholesome qualities? It's that kind of basic, but it's incredibly important to be reflecting on as that attention to the result is important. It's it's an intrinsic part of the Buddha's teaching. Is that there are sort of feedback loops where you can see the result. That's like one of the Dhamma, when we recite the Dhamma, it's like it's apparent here now. The results are apparent. We can feel it. We can experience it. We can see, is this helpful? Is this useful? Is this beneficial? Is this more peaceful, or is this more agitated? But you have to be willing to pay attention to dukkha. And Ajahn Chah and most teachers will be, if they are good teachers, they're going to keep turning you back to that experience of dukkha. I mean, I just saw it so many times with Ajahn Chah. Somebody would experiencing some difficulty or some problem in practice, or some kind of feeling of obstacle, or some strange experience. That was, and then Ajahn Chah would just ask, because they're asking for Ajahn Chah's advice. So Ajahn Chah would ask, is it dukkha? So you're turning it back and say, what is the nature of this experience? Is it, is it actually making me happy and peaceful, or am I swept up and caught up and not very clear in this at all? So it's because you don't have to be completely miserable and overwhelmed for it to be dukkha. I mean, that's the aspects of dukkha. I mean, the Buddha points to different kinds of dukkha. So like dukkha. Okay, well, that's straightforward. The experience of dukkha, that is suffering, or that is unsatisfactory. Okay, that's very clear. But then there's also what the Buddha calls viparinama dukkha. So the dukkha of change or separation. So that to be, and that's about the things that are pleasant. So that when we are separated from the loved, the wanted, the pleasing, we experience dukkha. It's the dukkha of separation, because we derive pleasure with our association with the pleasant, the pleasing, and we resist it when it changes. And is there anything that doesn't change? No. So if we keep resisting, we're always going to be stuck in dukkha. So that being able to recognize these different, because even happiness, just the attempts to maintain happiness, or the fear of losing the happiness that's there, that's dukkha. It's just it's more subtle, or even sometimes just the excitement of dukkha. Uh, it stirs the mind up, and then it's not so wonderful. So you see that you certainly see that in meditation. Sometimes you experience some kind of energy or some kind of insight, but then the mind gets stirred up. And so, wow, that felt really good, and then all of a sudden you're kind of agitated again. So just recognizing that dukkha has many forms. It can manifest itself just in a pleasant feeling. This can be dukkha. And it's not a put down. I think I talked about it last night or the night before, I can't remember. Last night, I guess. The using or relying on happiness to help to settle the mind. It is important. It's just quite natural that the mind is more comfortable experiencing pleasant feeling than experiencing the unpleasant. But it's also insight and wisdom relies on understanding and having insight into the whole range of experience. And we're talking about freedom, complete freedom from all limitation. The last kind of dukkha that the Buddha pointed to is sankhara dukkha. So just the dukkha of things being of a compounded nature, and that they are constructed, they are formed, and anything that is constructed, formed, fabricated, has a level of complication that is unsatisfactory. It's just not it's not there's a certain tainted quality to it, or like just having the sort of the dissonance of things not being all of a piece. When something's constructed, it's different components, whether it's physical or mental. Then all those components are sometimes working against each other. It's like one of the really striking, or for me it was very striking anyway, but seeing I really thought of that as like our neighbor at Abayagiri was dealing with cancer, and she ended up dying of cancer. And so that, of course, so she's a physical body, and then the cancer is kind of eating away and making her ill, sick. And then she had a bit of a fall and cut herself. And then you could see the body healing itself. So that here's this body that's both falling apart and healing all at the same time. It's sankhara dukkha. It's this unsatisfactory nature of things that of a fabricated, compounded, constructed matter. It's not straightforward. It's not quote unquote pure. So it's just we're recognizing that there is this limitation, and it goes for the mental world, the emotional world, along with the physical world. As long as and everything is of a constructed nature. The only thing that isn't is nibbana. So then that is the nature of nibbana, that it is unfabricated, uncompounded, unformed. And there's a sutta where the Buddha says, if there was not this unfabricated, unformed, unconstructed nature, then it would be impossible to be free from the form, the compounded, the constructed, the fabricated. But because there is this uncompounded nature, then it is possible to be free. It's just this is nature. So we have to be willing to tune into nature, attune ourselves to the nature of things. And when we attune ourselves to the nature of things, we can understand dukkha. But dukkha is like the doorway in to see and understand and reflect wisely on our experience, this experience of this human existence. Ajahn Jeff gives a good illustration of what the use of dukkha as a tool. He compares it to like a hunter in a forest in the jungle, or a forest anywhere. If somebody is a hunter, you don't just sort of go out in the jungle or out in the forest and wander around looking for an animal to trap or to shoot. You got to, where does it go? Where do they go? You go to the water hole. And they're all wherever they do go, they're always going to come back to that water hole. So that's where a hunter goes. And so in the same way, our mind wanders all over the place, but the place that is a doorway and that to insight into the true nature of things and to freedom is this experience of dukkha. That is the focal point. That's the key to being able to see our experience. We don't have to look at absolutely every experience that we have. Just look at dukkha, and that gives you a key to the possibility of letting go, and that's in this in the teachings of the Buddha, of these Four Noble Truths. The Buddha talks of these. That says that the different noble truths, but you also have the Four Noble Truths, but you have the duty, the responsibility to each truth that you have to say perform or pay attention to, so that the truth of dukkha is to be known. It's to be known, it's to be understood. Marinyatavati, to know clearly. So it's not, and then the truth of the cause of dukkha, and the Buddha points to tanha, desire in its different forms, that is to be abandoned, that is to be let go of, that is to be relinquished. So that and usually what we want to do, we want to abandon, let go of, relinquish dukkha, but we keep circling around and hanging on to the causes of dukkha. And so then, it just doesn't. It keeps arising. It keeps being problematic. So that sense of the knowing what needs to be known, let go of what needs to be let go of. It's kind of basic, kind of straightforward, but human beings are wonderfully complicated creatures and intent on suffering more and being happy less. So it's just being able to respond to these teachings skillfully, and so that they, in the same way that oftentimes they think, well, Buddha's teaching is all about dukkha. And yes, I mean to a certain degree, but it's but there are four noble truths. It's not just the one noble truth or the one truth of dukkha. It's the four noble truths. So there's truth of dukkha, cause of dukkha, cessation of dukkha. The cessation, the ending of dukkha is a possibility. And that is to be realized. It's to be made real. How do we attend to the experience of the ending of dukkha? Because everything that begins has an end. And do we just get absorbed in the dukkha all the time and create our identity around that, wallow in it, be overwhelmed by it? Or do we direct our attention to the ending, the cessation, the settling of dukkha? Because that's a very real experience also. And so to making it real, to satchikhandamati, to realize that the nature of that experience of another, like sometimes it's the nirodha satcha, the truth of cessation. But nirodha, I mean, cessation is a very valid translation, but it's very nuanced. So it's not just another equally valid way of translating it or approaching it is non-arising. So the non-arising of dukkha, we pay attention, because usually what gets our attention is that the arising of and a presence of something unpleasant or difficult or interesting and fascinating. But can we pay attention to its non-arising? I mean, it's there. That's way more subtle. But it opens up possibilities of peace and settling and stillness. Another translation that say Ajahn Buddhadasa uses is the word quenching, like the quenching of dukkha, sort of where it is almost like in the quenching of a fire. The fire settles down and it cools, and so it's quenched. It's replete. It's surfeit. And so that is a possibility of experience. So then to turn attention to these, that spectrum of experience that we have the possibility to access. Then, of course, the path leading to cessation of dukkha is there is a path, there is a way of practice, there is a way of training. It's based on the sila, samadhi, prajna, virtue, integrity, mindfulness, settling of the mind, reflection, investigation, wisdom, discernment. And that can all be cultivated, can be developed. And that's the duty that we have to this path leading to cessation of suffering. So, these are just an encouragement to come back to the core teachings, fundamental teachings. Don't skip over thinking that it's just kind of a beginner's practice. I remember one time going to pay respects to a really highly respected Tibetan Rinpoche who came to America. I think he's a tutor to. He was a Dzogchen master, so a meditation master, who was a tutor to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and His Holiness was giving teachings in America, and he's this Rinpoche, and he was a Nyingma Rinpoche who was fully ordained, and so he was a bhikshu, and he. And normally he doesn't like to leave. He lives in closer towards the kind of the base, Mount Everest area, and doesn't like to come out very much. But His Holiness sort of begged and pleaded with him to come and join. And somebody told me about, this Rinpoche is here in America. He's going to be visiting a center just north of. There's a Tibetan center just north of us in California, and he was going. So we took whoever was interested to go. We took the whole group up to pay respects to him, and he was very special. Really, presence was just very clear, very peaceful, very, very warm, very compassionate. And he saw us because also the center that we went to, although it's headed up by a monk, the majority, almost none of the people that go are monastics. It's a lay center, but then he saw us as monastics, and he was like, "Oh, bhikshu. Good bhikshu." Yeah, bhikshu. So he was so excited to see monks, to see a whole group of monks, Westerners, Americans. So he was so excited, and gave this very warm reception, and then he gave a Dhamma talk, which most of it I can't remember, but the thing that really grabbed my attention was that he said, and he's somebody who is he's a meditation master. He's a master of all sorts of things, knowledge in the and ceremony and ritual that they do in the Tibetan traditions. But he emphasized, if you are learning the Buddha's teachings, and in order to learn it properly, if the teaching that you are hearing or that somebody is teaching, if it is not firmly grounded in the Four Noble Truths, it is not Buddhism. Fundamental. So it was really inspiring that this great Dzogchen master was. This is the essence. This is the foundation. This is what carries us through to penetration and understanding. So those are some thoughts for the evening. I'll offer it for reflection. Andamayang Dhammakataya Sadhuka